Welcome to Wine Soundtrack Canada. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 Answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack Canada. It is Christine Campbell, and today I am thrilled to be sitting in North Vancouver with my good friend Alison Moyes from Solvero Wines. Welcome, Alison. Can you please tell me a bit about yourself and Solvero Wines?
Hi, thanks, Christine. I'm really excited to be here today. My background, I've been making wine in British Columbia for about 15 years now, always with a focus on Pinot. And I first got to notice the Solvero project about 10 years ago when the family purchased the property and what their vision was for Pinot Noir in the Garnet Valley. So I joined Solvero Wines last year. We are a vineyard and winery and soon to be tasting room in the Garnet Valley region of Summerland. Which is a narrow valley just parallel to the Okanagan, which limits the sunlight hours, which is perfect for Pinot and Chardonnay.
Well, that sounds fantastic. So you are located in Summerland, British Columbia. How many acres of land do you currently have?
So in Garnet Valley, we have 30 acres, 16 of which are plantable. We have about 14 planted right now, all of it planted to Chardonnay and Pinot, and a little bit of Gamay planned for 2023. And we do have a second property in more Summerland proper called Happy Valley, and that's a 4-acre property.
Okay, so with that amount of land and that much planted, and I know you are new, you guys are new kids on the block. I think that's fair to say. How many cases do you produce?
Right now, very small production, less than 1,000 cases, about 400 cases of Pinot Noir, and then the whites that we have released are Chardonnay, Rosé, and Pinot Gris, and those are 50 to 60 cases for each SKU. It's a very small batch.
But that just means there's more place to grow, right? What would you say are your markets, being so new to the game? The vineyard obviously isn't new, but the wines are kind of new to market. What would you say are your current markets right now?
Well, right now, given the tasting room hasn't opened yet, we're exclusively on the shelf in Vancouver at a few select retailers, and we've focused on sort of farm-to-table style restaurants, just to get us out and get some talk going in the Vancouver market. We are hoping to do a soft opening of our tasting room this fall, and then the full grand opening spring of 2023.
Ooh, I'll put it on my calendar if I'm invited. I think I will be. Alison, why don't you tell me one of your first memories relevant to wine growing up?
Growing up. My family wasn't really a big wine family, to be honest with you. I think maybe my first memory ever of wine was probably bad wedding wine that I didn't, when I first tried red wine, probably at 13 or 14 or something, I thought to myself, I don't think I really like wine. And it wasn't until sort of I was of drinking age and working in restaurants and like getting my first full-on side-by-side flight of wines where it was like a light bulb went off, like, wow, this is, that eureka moment that you have. And I knew how much I'd been missing out on, not being aware of this, and now that's what I want to share with people, right? Like introduce them into the cool world of wine.
And it is a cool world of wine. Do you remember what it was that you were drinking or what the occasion was when you had that flight and your kind of aha moment with the wines?
Yeah, so I had a really great mentor at a restaurant that I worked at. It was a Greek restaurant, and the owner was going through doing his sommelier certification, and he thought to offer sort of an introductory course to the servers there, and I was a part of that, and that sort of moment translated into me doing my sommelier certification and becoming the somm at the new wine bar that he opened in Halifax. Which was quite a long time ago now, but that was really what got me into wine to begin with.
Well, that's hugely memorable. My goodness, I love it. And I like wine education. I think that more people should just crack a book or go online and do a course You always can learn a little bit more. So speaking about traveling, learning, what do you think is the best foreign wine you've ever enjoyed?
There's a lot to choose from. Can I pick two?
Yes.
I think I was recently in Burgundy, and given, my love of Chardonnay and Pinot, it was really the Chardonnays and Beaune, Clos de Vougeot Chardonnay that was just outstanding. It was one I picked up to bring back with me. And something maybe a little bit more obscure, and maybe the reason it's memorable is because it's a bit more obscure, is I was in Slovenia maybe 5 years ago, touring the wine regions there, and I knew nothing about Slovenian wines. They're really into natural wines and orange wines, which is not something I'd ever gravitated towards until this orange wine from Pinot Gris in Slovenia that I loved.
Fantastic answer. I can't say that I have tried a Slovenian orange wine, but now I want to. Amongst the world's populations, so Italians, French, Greek, Slovenians, what population do you think drinks the best in regards to quality around the world?
I'm going to say maybe an answer you probably don't hear very often, but I spent some time in London, England, representing wine brands there, and they seem to have such a great market selection from around the world. Obviously, in Italy, they're drinking great wine. In France, they're drinking great wine. But I'm not sure if they have the same kind of access to everywhere that the UK does. So I'm going to say UK.
Great answer. Do you have a current wine in your cellar that is giving you a lot of satisfaction right now that you keep going back to over and over again? Like, yeah, this is great.
I think I'm going to go with, so wineries that I've worked at are wines that I have most depth of in my cellar because I've had most access to them. And, if you have a part of making it, you want to, keep some and see how they're showing in several years. So I would say I did a couple of vintages at Solvero. They were my first two vintages out in British Columbia in 2008 and 2009. And the 2009 vintage I remember being somewhat challenging, or at least the winemakers, indicated that they were struggling a bit, but it turned out to be beautiful. And now that when I revisit that wine, it's showing so beautifully at, so many years later. It was, you never know where the vintage is going to take you.
You really don't. You really don't. Do you believe that there is such a thing as a perfect variety?
I guess if I think Pinot's pretty perfect. If it's so complex and delicate, it's challenging. So I guess to me, that's a positive thing, that because you have to put so much effort into it, that's what makes it rewarding. But I guess some could look at that as a not perfect characteristic. I choose to look at it as a positive thing. I'll go with Pinot Noir. Pretty perfect.
It is pretty perfect. And, you might just have that kind of patience and care and love to give it that it needs. So that is your perfect grape. There's no right answer to any of these questions, which is what I love about these questions so much. And me aside, what is your opinion of wine critics and wine scores?
That's a good one. So I think they're important. I think that these are ambassadors of the wines that we're creating and working on, and they're sharing that message in a digestible way for the general public. It's a really important part of it. From my winemaker's perspective, I feel like I have to take them with a grain of salt on both ends. That if you get a really great review, don't let it go too much deep. Like on a different day, in a different context, maybe you wouldn't have gotten that score. And then on the other side of things, I keep that in mind as well.
A balanced approach. As a consumer, Alison, do you tend to prefer whites, reds, or rosé wines?
I'm really gravitating towards the whites and the rosés these days, into Rieslings and sort of Provence-style rosés is really kind of what I'm into right now, but it changes from season to season and, mood to mood.
Yes, it does. So mood to mood, still or sparkling?
Sparkling.
Yay! Regarding sparkling, champagne or something else?
Oh, I'm going to go with traditional method sparkling. I think there's so much interest and nuance in that. I'm not going to say no to Prosecco if it's offered to me, but traditional method is where my head's at.
You and I think the same. Alison, if you've ever, and I think we all have been there, enjoyed that one extra glass of wine when we might have just instead have had a glass of water, do you have a cure for a hangover that you want to share with the listeners that we can learn from?
I'm not sure it's a cure or even really that, helpful, but if I've had 4 glasses of wine, I'm drinking as much water as I can before going to bed and probably sleeping in a little bit the next day.
Water it is. Water's the answer. What does a non-drinker lose out on by not tasting your wine?
Well, I think you're missing out on maybe an art, like understanding an art form and a particular type of expression. Wine is so fascinating that, I think we were talking earlier about Chardonnay and, how it's a blank canvas and it can become absolutely anything based on the year, how it's treated, what you're fermenting it in. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That being said, not wanting to drink alcohol, that's fine. I'd say have a taste and spit.
Totally. 100%. That's always what I would answer. Have a taste, spit it out. You don't have to swallow. It's all good. I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit. This is one of our more unique questions in our time together. Space aliens land on your property. Which of the wines from your cellar do you give them to taste and why? Now this is from your winery cellar. What would you introduce to them as this is who we are?
Well, I've got to go with Pinot Noir. I feel like when we I'm working on a traditional method sparkling for this year, and maybe in the future that would be, we toast their arrival together or something. But I mean, Pinot Noir is our defining grape variety, and that's what I'd want to show them.
And do you think there are more things that repeat themselves about each vintage, or is it the opposite? Do you feel that vintages kind of continually tell the same story, or is everything so entirely unique?
I think there is some consistency, but there's more that's different from year to year, and we have to adjust. And what we're trying to do is tell the story of the vintage, not make the same identical wine year after year.
So you want to let that vintage speak?
That's right, yeah.
Do you have any personal good luck rituals for when harvest is about to start?
This might be a classic one, but I think getting the whole team together and sabering a bottle of sparkling over the press or over the press pan, and everybody toasting and getting that group picture on the first day of harvest. I feel like that's a good team building experience. Fun tradition too.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to saber a bottle of sparkling wine and have a glass before you get to work? I've learned that some producers and winemakers walk in their cellars and speak to the wine in the barrels. Do you do that, Alison? And if so, what do you say? And if it's not in the barrel room, do you speak to the vines in the vineyard?
I don't know about speaking to them, but I think having good vibes and good music around is important. So yeah, I'm often playing music in the cellar, and something that I'm enjoying and makes me feel good. I feel like that's got to have some positive impact on the wine too.
Music's always the answer as well. Sparkling, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. Alison, when you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a teacher. I think for the first formative years that I can remember, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I had, really great elementary school teachers that had meaning in my life. And I don't think it was until high school that I sort of switched gears to wanting to be something to do more with science and research.
You could have been a great science teacher out of high school.
That's true, but I think I'm happy with where I ended up.
I'm happy where you ended up. My goodness. When you're not working, and I know you work very hard, how do you spend your free time?
I really like, we're so lucky in BC that there's so much to explore. So I live in Penticton, which is a city between two lakes, which is pretty unique. So when the weather allows, beach time, water time, and then I love hiking and snowshoeing and just getting outside and enjoying what BC has to offer.
Do you play any sport in particular? Are you on any sport team?
I am not on a sports team. The closest thing, I was never really a team sport kind of gal growing up. I was a avid Highland dancer.
So was I.
Shut up.
No, I promise you, I was a Highland dancer.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I did it for probably 12 years or 14 years, competitive Highland dancer until I was maybe 20. So that's my sort of sporty-ish background.
Highland dancing is not for the faint of heart.
It's not. Most people don't realize how cardiovascularly and stamina takes quite a lot. But right now, yoga is basically the limit of my pursuits.
Yoga is tricky too. My goodness. I'm going to switch gears again and ask you something about music. And that is, do you have a favorite singer or group over the years that you've loved, enjoyed, and continue to come back to?
I guess I would go with Radiohead, probably as my all-time favorite band that's really started out as one thing and evolved into something different and has kept it interesting. And I think a lot of what they've done is genius.
Cool answer. No one's ever said Radiohead before. I like it. I like it when somebody says something new, and I'm smiling from ear to ear here. Do you have a favorite film dedicated to wine?
I guess the first film I watched dedicated to wine would have been Bottle Shock, and I think there was some cliche in it, but I saw myself in some of the characters as well, and I loved it. It was a bit cheesy, but that was part of the charm.
Charming and cheesy. There we go. I like that. So if you were sitting down for a romantic evening, what wine would you order for the table to kick off your night?
To kick it off, I've got to go with sparkling. I'd want to do maybe a traditional method champagne, like a Paul Roger or something like that, would be nice, and then followed up with a really silky, sultry red. Yeah, I don't know, maybe a Sangiovese, Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, I think would be kind of cool. It's and would impress your date maybe to order as well.
Look at me, I know about wine. Okay, so you said that you don't play sports, but are you a supporter of any sports team?
I have enjoyed hockey over the years. With COVID kind of got out of it a little bit, but growing up in Toronto, I am a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Mm-hmm.
How popular are you in British Columbia with the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, I'll just say this. We're going to get the cup next year. Yeah.
Okay. You heard it here first, people. So if they won the Stanley Cup next year, so they win, and you are there, and you've brought a bottle from your winery's cellar, what wine are you going to gift them?
Gift them? can I do I can't just do a 4-pack, like here's everything that we make.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think I'd want to just give them a flight, maybe a vertical of the Pinots and one of each of the wines. Like, hey, you just won the cup, you deserve more than just one bottle.
So Toronto Maple Leafs better lace up those skates pretty great next year so you can get that wine. Alison, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I think, I guess I'm going to go with a wine piece of advice since that's the theme of the interview. I got a piece of advice from another winemaker years ago that said, he said, don't get in your own head about your wine speak, and don't get caught up in the taglines that, you have to sort of simplify some of what you're talking about with wines to make it digestible for the audience. But as a winemaker, you really have to be thinking about things in a very in-depth way and not looking at it as a one-dimensional thing. If you get caught up in your wine speak, you can run into problems. And I think that was a really valid thing. I've always remembered that.
That is sage advice. Wow. So do you have some advice that you would like to pass on to us that comes from you, not comes from someone else? One of maybe your mottos or mantras on how you live your life, or how your approach to winemaking is?
I think my approach to winemaking is, I hope, thoughtful winemaking. I hope it's I hope that I'm a mentor to others, and to share information and to share the knowledge of what you know is so valuable to others that may be coming after you, and you don't even realize how significant that could be in someone else's life and career and formative years in winemaking. So I always try and remember that, to share the knowledge and share the passion.
And there's your wanting to be a teacher when you grew up, sharing that information, right?
Well, there you go. I hadn't even thought of that.
See, this is what I do. I listen, I connect the dots. Well, I think that's a really lovely answer too, because we don't know who is out there that would benefit from some input. And I think that it's fantastic that you're capable and wanting. Speaking of work, what is your proudest achievement in your work life thus far?
Gosh, I mean, there's wine awards and things like that. That is the common thing that people talk about. And we have won some awards. I've won some awards I'm proud of. But I think I'm going to go back to my restaurant days, honestly. When I first started managing a restaurant, became a somm, put together this wine list, and built this team. It was probably the biggest team we ever put together. And, some of those friendships are lasting and have been so significant in my life. So, that at that wine bar in Halifax, that team of, 20 odd servers and kitchen staff, and to have that cohesion with that group of people, I think I'm going to say that's my biggest achievement.
Is that wine bar still open, Alison?
It's not, unfortunately. I think it was ahead of its time, but it opened, I'm going to say, in 2001 or so, and probably shut down a decade later. But it was really ahead of its time. A couple of stars on the Wine Spectator, Best Award of Excellence with the Wine Spectator, and a really great list with a lot of depth, and about 40 wines by the glass, which was, unheard of at that time.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, cutting edge, hey? It would have been nice if they were able to stick it out. I would fly to Halifax tomorrow and go check it out. Alison said I have to come. I'm going to ask you to complete the following sentence. A table without wine is like...
Maybe a plant or a flower without a bloom. I'm looking at the beautiful flowers in your back garden here, and that's what comes to mind.
Beautiful, beautiful. The rhododendron says thank you. Mm-hmm. Do you think we're still going to be drinking wine in 2,000 years' time from now?
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's been around for a couple thousand years. There's treated like, I think that's for a reason. I mean, if we're around, I think we're still going to be drinking wine.
We're going to need it. Name 3 wines that you would like to take with you. You can choose a deserted island, which I think is what you'd choose because you said you like beach time, or out into outer space. Now, these are the 3 wines that you will get to live with forever. No other wines can come. So you can give me color, you can give me specifics, you can give me variety, you can, however you want to answer this, it's an open book.
Okay. Well, I can only bring 3. I'll pick styles. I feel like I need to have some sparkling. So traditional method sparkling. Got to have between white and rosé. I think I'll go with white. Maybe something. Honestly, I think Pinot Blanc or Pinot Gris, something sort of easy sipping. And then, what kind of Pinot Noir? I mean, toss up between BC because, I love it so much, but I'd probably go with Burgundy, a Burgundy Pinot Noir.
Solid answers across the board. What is one winemaking area in the world that you would like to explore and have not yet?
Italy would be the big one. I have never been to Italy. I did just cross the border into Trieste from Slovenia while I was there, but that was just for an afternoon. I would love to explore. I mean, Italy, there's so much. It would have to be either a several months long trip or I do it in pieces. But that would be the next thing on my bucket list.
I hope you put Abruzzo in there because it blew my mind.
It's on the list now.
Put it on the list. Okay, we're not quite finished yet. It is now time for a little game we like to play. I'm going to pick some different wine varieties, and I would like you to tell me what song you would pair with that wine. This is the Wine Soundtrack Canada, so we want to have some music in here and have some fun. Ready?
I think so.
We're going to start with Pinot Noir.
Okay. I think Pinot Noir because it's got depth and complexity, but it's smooth, still like a little funky. I'm gonna pick. This is odd, but I have a song that I really like by Daft Punk from their Random Access Memories album. It's called Instant Crush. I was actually just listening to it on the car on the way over. Such a fun song, but like rich and it's got depth and complexity too. So yeah.
Fun answer. I'm going to hit you now with, what am I going to hit you with? Sparkling, traditional method. What would you pair with that? And it doesn't have to be a specific song, although I love your preciseness. You can do a genre or a band, however you want to answer.
Okay. I feel like it has to be, there's complexity there too. It has to be something a little bit lighter, bubblier, if you will. Maybe like classical or something, like Mozart or a famous concerto that, I feel like classical music kind of tells the story on sparkling.
Not the bagpipes?
I think I've had enough of the bagpipes for the rest of my life, but
I had to throw that in there. Sorry, listeners, I thought it was funny. Okay, the last one I'm going to throw at you because you mentioned it briefly, and that is Pinot Blanc. I'm intrigued to see what you're going to answer to this one.
Okay, Pinot Blanc. I think it's an underestimated variety. And I think similar to Chardonnay, it can be like a bit of a blank canvas that you have a lot, as a winemaker, you have a lot of ability to shape what that will become. A little bit mysterious. I'm going to go Sarah McLachlan on that one. Ooh. I can't remember what's that? Building a Mystery?
Building a Mystery or something?
There's that album, that whole tone.
Okay.
Maybe that.
A Canadian singer for all those people that don't know Sarah McLachlan. Fantastic answers. I like your musical soundtrack there, Alison. Well done. Thank you so very much for joining us today. You've been an absolute pleasure, and I've had a great time chatting with you. Can you tell people where we will be able to find your wines in the future?
Yes, so when our tasting room opens, the cellar door will be the best way to access our wines. So we're on Wild Horse Road in the Garnet Valley region of Summerland. But we're also on the shelves at a few locations in Vancouver, including Marquee Cellars, Everything Wine, a couple Liberty locations as well, and at a restaurant called Forage. That's the first restaurant that's pouring our wines.
I'm a huge fan of that restaurant. It's a fantastic pairing, if I can be so cliche. Do you have a website address for anybody or social media handles that we can follow?
Yes, website is www.solverowines.ca, and at Solvero Wines is the Instagram handle.
Thank you, Alison. I hope you had a great time. I certainly did. And thank you, listeners, to the Wine Soundtrack Canada. This is your host, Christine Campbell. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack Canada. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.